Now we're going to talk about adding page content using the rich text editor. It's a very common set of tools that you can use to add content that's customized and standardized across your pages. So let's click on an example page. So click on the new page I created earlier, and you'll see the rich text editor right here. This is very similar to something you would see in Microsoft Word, giving you a lot of elements that you can change, but also keep in mind that when adding content using this, keep it simple. Your site has been designed by designers, so what we use this area for here is not for designing content, but for laying it out in a readable manner. So we're going to look at the basic controls that we recommend using, and we'll stay away from things that are more complex. So let's just look through them real quickly. If you hover over them, you'll get a little description. That's just a select all. You can paste in content as plain text. You can paste in specifically from Word. You can find something within your text. You can find and replace something in your text. Then you can insert characters, horizontal lines, other special characters like $signs, things like that. You can also add imagery, which we'll talk about. These are two link buttons which become visible once you have text in your in the editor. You have anchors, which will click and link to different parts of the page. I wouldn't worry too much about that. Embedded media, cleaning up code, removing formatting. This will toggle a full screen mode, print an HTML source button, and help. And then below that, you have all of your basic controls for styling your content. So you have bold, italic, underline, strike through, subscript, and superscript. You have bullet lists, numeric lists. You have indents, alignment for text, and you have styles. If there's some pre-existing styles in your site, you click on that and you'll get some options. And you also have the main styles here, which are paragraph and then a list of headings and then a couple of different things that you might not necessarily need to know right now. And then we have another edit CSS style, things you don't need to worry about. The primary ones you'll be using will be getting content into this window using pasting, and then you'll be using removing formatting and cleaning up code quite a bit. And then you'll be using these controls here to edit your content. So let's start with some text that I have, and a lot of people use something like Microsoft Word beforehand to write something, so they don't have to write it on their website. It would be good if you actually did write on your website and you started typing in all your content here and then formatted it as you went, but that's not always a realistic thing. So in this case, I'll take something from Microsoft Word. If I paste it in, you'll see that I've got all of my content in here. It's pretty straightforward, nothing too fancy about that. If I look at the source code, you can see that I've got just a simple, basically the same text that I've got. It's just got some little tags around it. That's called HTML. You don't need to worry about that too much. But what this view does give you, how you can see how complex the content that's in your site is. So we don't need to use that very often, but it does give us an idea if there's something that looks a bit weird, we can usually track it down by clicking on that button. But what we've got here is actually relatively clean text. But I'd like to have a nice big header, and I'd like to make some list items down here. So in order to do that, I will select my text here, and I want that to be a nice big header. And the way we pick a header is we look at our page title is generally going to be the heading 1, the first heading. And then below that, we start with heading 2. So the biggest heading on your page should generally be, or on your content, should generally be heading number 2. So there we have a nice big header, and then we have a paragraph here. If all your text is running together, like so, you can just press return, and that'll create a new paragraph. And we want them all to be in paragraphs. We don't want to use page breaks or spaces to space things out. We want to keep it really nice and organic. So if we want to make this word bold, obviously click bold, this word italic. These are the kind of things that you can do to get your content wrapped up into a very readable style. And then below that, let's say we want to make a list. I click the list option here, and I say list item. If I press return now, it'll automatically create another one, list item 2, and list item 3. So there's my list items. If I want to do an ordered list, which is the list here with the numbers clearly marked, you can just say number 1, number 2, etc. And that will create those list items for you automatically, and when you press return, obviously the next one is created. If you have one and you want to type a new paragraph and you're saying, then we, oh wait a minute, This is not, we don't want this to be an item, so we can actually just click that and it'll remove that particular item from the list. Then you can go on typing and creating your content. And generally what we want to see, and what most users of websites want to see, is relatively short paragraphs, not too many of them. Break up your content into lists with nice succinct headers so it's easy to skim and readable. So the next thing that we can do is, let's say we have content from Microsoft Word that is quite complex and it comes with a lot of formatting. We always want to use, if we're coming from Word, paste from Word. So if I paste something in and then I press insert, it inserts it into here without any of the Microsoft formatting, although I have inserted it into a list item. So let's just remove that. There we go. And obviously it'll insert your text wherever your cursor is. If there's a word inside of your text that you'd like to replace, you can select the word and then do find and replace. And it says find what? I would like to find that word. Let's replace it with hello. And if you press replace all, it'll give you a confirmation. And close that. And wherever that appeared, there's now this separate word, this different word. Save some things. If you want to change the name of our product, or if you want to change something inside of that across the board, if it's a long page, that's an easy way to do it. You can also do links. Now let's say we want this word here to link to another page. Or how about this? Let's say this often happens. Contact us for more information. If I want this to link to my contact page, I select it and then I click the link button, and that'll open up the link window. Okay, now I can type in what I know to be my page address, which is contact-us, but that's you might not always know what that is. But what I can do is I can search in my own website for a page. So if I search for contact, it'll pop up the appropriate page and it'll automatically fill in that link. And now this looks a bit bizarre, this link. It's because what it uses is the resource ID, which you can see here. Every item that you've created has a resource ID. And when you wrap it in a little tilde and these brackets, that tells the system that it will fill in the proper address. So if you end up changing the name of this, it will change the URL in the domain in the menu bar. And if that changes, then obviously all your links are broken. But if you do it this way, it will intelligently create the proper link. Press insert. And now we have a link to our contact page. And if I want to remove that link, clearly I just break the link here and that's gone. Adding imagery. Now we try to avoid adding imagery at this stage. Generally when your site's built, there's probably going to be an area on the site that is made for imagery. In this case, I believe we have a potential slideshow here that we can add to the page. But on this page, in the content, there's no way to add an image except for this button here. So if we click on this button, it'll ask you for an image URL, and then it gives you this little area here, which is browse. And this will allow you to browse all the files that you've already uploaded that are on your setup or on your system now. So let's click an example of this one, and then it gives you a preview of that, and it asks you to add an image description. It's a very important field to fill in. This is for SEOs, or for search engine optimization. This is a description of what this picture is. Let's say this is a picture of a house. I'll write, this is a picture of a house. So you just describe what's in that picture, because Google cannot see, it can only read, so you need to describe these things. So if this page, also if this image doesn't appear for some reason, if there's something wrong, then this description of the image will appear instead. But generally you want to always describe what those pictures are. It's a good way to get a little bit of extra benefit of your content for search engine optimization. So if I press insert, it'll insert my image in that spot. One thing to keep in mind is that you do have a couple of other options for aligning this like you would any image. If you double click on this, or if you go to right click, and go to alignment, you can align this left, center, right, or full. If you do it left, it will, when visible on the page, it will be floated to the left and your text will be over here. This is something you want to talk about the designer or developer with, just to see how that's going to work in your page. Generally, you don't want to have too much of this happening. It can break up the content quite a bit. It's always good to add imagery into your site, but do it a little bit with caution and be very careful about where you place them, because it will have a dramatic effect on that page and its readability. And one thing of note, when dealing with imagery in your website, because you're uploading files, let's go ahead and delete this and look back at that window. Let's click on that again. When you click on the button here and you go to your file menu, I recommend watching the video on the MODX file manager to learn about how to upload and organize your files. Keep it simple in here and your site will look consistent and will be generally more successful.